Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, picture this for a second. You've got two absolute global giants standing on opposite sides of the world stage. On one side, a billionaire businessman turned president of the United States. On the other, a former intelligence officer who has ruled Russia for decades. Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. Both of these men have fundamentally shaped world politics, they've influenced millions of lives, and they have absolutely dominated global headlines. Today, we're going to dig into the true nature of their global influence to understand how they actually operate.
And so that naturally brings us to the ultimate question, right? The one literally everyone asks when these two names come up. Who is actually more powerful? Now, the answer isn't as simple as just comparing the size of their armies or the amount of wealth in their treasuries. Power comes in a lot of different forms. It's about political influence, military strength, economic control, global alliances, media presence, and ultimately, the ability to shape history.
To figure this out fairly, we are going to evaluate both men across 6 key pillars: paths to power, military might, economic influence, political control, global reach and image, and finally, the final verdict. Let's see exactly how these different forms of power play out.
Let's jump right into Pillar 1, Paths to Power, and the origins of these two giants. It is honestly wild to see the contrast in how these two men reached the pinnacle of global leadership. Donald Trump built his reputation entirely in the private sector. Long before he ever entered politics, he forged a massive real estate empire and dominated reality television with The Apprentice. Defying a lot of traditional expectations, he won the 2016 U.S. presidential election and later returned to office by winning again in 2024. His rise really proved how public image, brand recognition, and just immense media influence can completely reshape the political landscape. Vladimir Putin, on the other hand, followed a radically different path. He served as a KGB intelligence officer, notably stationed in Dresden, East Germany, right during the chaotic fall of the Soviet Union. He navigated this complex intelligence apparatus before entering Russian politics and eventually became president in the year 2000. For most of the last 2 decades, he's been Russia's dominant political figure. So we have two entirely different origins, a real estate mogul and a KGB operative, both leading to world-altering influence.
Moving on to Pillar 2, military might, where we assess their hard power. When we talk about power, military influence is probably the most visible traditional form out there. As Commander-in-Chief, Donald Trump oversees one of the most advanced and comprehensively funded militaries on the planet. We are talking about a staggering defense budget that consistently tops $800 billion. The U.S. operates hundreds of overseas bases strategically placed all around the globe, and they basically command the seas with 11 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers. When it comes to conventional global reach, meaning the ability to drop massive, traditional military force literally anywhere on the map within hours, the United States possesses an unrivaled capability. But, we absolutely cannot look at military might without looking at Russia. Vladimir Putin exercises authority over a military that's designed to project a very different kind of devastating strength. While Russia doesn't match the U.S. when it comes to overseas bases or aircraft carriers, it does possess the world's largest stockpile of nuclear warheads. Plus, Russia has invested heavily in next-generation weaponry, like highly sophisticated hypersonic missile technology. So when it comes to nuclear deterrence and the capacity for mutually assured destruction, Russia is on completely equal footing. It ensures them a formidable global deterrence, no matter what the conventional military gap looks like. Next up is Pillar 3, economic influence, the wealth of nations. Economic power reveals another massive contrast in how each country wields its global leverage. The American economy is just an undisputed juggernaut. It's the largest in the world by nominal GDP, and the US dollar is the dominant global reserve currency. And this economy is driven by global tech giants, right? Companies like Apple, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Tesla. These companies literally dictate the pace of innovation and influence local economies everywhere. Now, Russia's economy is significantly smaller in terms of GDP, but it is highly strategic and laser-focused. Instead of global tech, Russia relies on state-backed energy titans like Gazprom and Rosneft. Their leverage comes from the strategic weaponization of massive oil and natural gas exports. That gives Russia intense leverage in international affairs, especially over energy-dependent nations in Europe and Asia. So while the U.S. clearly has the advantage in sheer economic size and tech dominance, Russia wields its resources as a very formidable geopolitical tool.
That brings us to Pillar 4, political control, governing the state.
This is maybe the most striking difference between the two. Donald Trump operates inside a constitutional framework of checks and balances. And this isn't just theory on paper. It means real-world friction. A U.S. president can issue an executive order, only to have it struck down by the Supreme Court the next day. They can propose this massive national initiative only to have its funding completely blocked by Congress. Add in state governments, regular elections, an independent press, and you have a system specifically designed to legally constrain presidential power. No American president has complete, unchecked control over the government.
In sharp contrast, Vladimir Putin governs under a highly centralized political structure. The Russian presidency holds immense executive authority that plays out in very practical ways. Putin can swiftly appoint loyalists to key positions, marginalize political opposition, and tightly control state institutions. And he does all of this without facing the kind of congressional gridlock or judicial pushback you see in the United States. So while Trump commands a much larger global economy, his domestic power is legally and intentionally constrained. Putin, meanwhile, operates with a centralized authority that allows for swift, unchecked domestic action.
Let's look at Pillar 5, global reach and image, winning hearts and minds.
Because power isn't just about domestic control or stockpiling weapons, right? It relies heavily on international alliances. The United States leads massive military alliances like NATO. The practical application of this is huge. The U.S. can mobilize massive, multinational coalitions, and its decisions constantly shape international security. Russia, however, plays a major role internationally through a totally different avenue. It remains a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council. This grants Russia the ultimate veto power. That means Putin's government can single-handedly block international interventions and legally stall UN actions, giving it deep, structural influence in global diplomacy.
Then there's public image, which is the other half of global reach. And their contrasting styles here are just fascinating. Donald Trump generates worldwide attention through a highly disruptive, spontaneous social media style. He bypasses the traditional press to speak directly to his base. This draws fierce loyalty from supporters who love his America First priorities, while also drawing sharp criticism from those who find his rhetoric divisive. Vladimir Putin, conversely, relies on carefully choreographed state broadcasts, and these marathon Q&A sessions designed to project an image of unshakable control, national security, and stability. His supporters view him as the ultimate defender of Russia's historical interests, while critics point to severe restrictions on political opposition and media freedom. The point is, both men command massive loyal followings, but they use entirely different playbooks to get there.
And finally, Pillar 6, the final verdict, redefining global power.
So, considering all of these deeply contrasting pillars, who actually holds more power? Well, if we define power by overall global influence, reach, and sheer resources, the President of the United States generally holds greater power. Donald Trump leads a global superpower with an unmatched economy, widespread international alliances, and a conventional military reach that spans the globe. But, and this is a crucial but, all of this operates entirely within a democratic framework of institutions designed to limit his control.
However, if we define power by the sheer concentration of domestic authority, the answer undeniably shifts. Vladimir Putin exercises far broader direct control over his government. He commands a highly centralized state and a formidable nuclear superpower completely without the same level of institutional friction that an American president faces every single day.
At the end of the day, true power depends entirely on the criteria being measured. Is it the vast wealth and global reach of a constrained democratic leader, or is it the centralized, unyielding authority of a leader commanding a massive nuclear arsenal? Both have unequivocally left a massive, lasting mark on modern history. So, based on the 6 pillars we've discussed today, who do you think has more power, and why? We'd love to keep this conversation going, so drop your thoughts in the comments below.